You may say that it is President's Day, but it felt more like Independence Day for computer users. Today, many staged protests around the country and here in the Bay Area over having to pay for something they don't want and don't use. Microsoft's operating system.
On February 15th, 1999, groups of open source software advocates around the world got together at their local Microsoft office to stage a protest. While numerous demonstrations were held on that day in major US cities and even foreign countries like Japan and New Zealand, the most well-documented protest occurred in California's Silicon Valley. After meeting at a local Denny's restaurant and creating picketing signs, the group of over 150 protesters marched onward towards the Microsoft office building in Foster City. Members of the press quickly followed them with cameras and microphones to capture the event for local news stations and newspapers. The group was predominantly made up by Linux users, but users of other open source OSs were mixed in as well. Wearing shirts and hats outfitted with the Linux Tux mascot, the protesters arrived outside the Microsoft offices. Armed with unused and unwanted software licenses, the demonstrators stood outside the office building until they came face to face with Microsoft employees. They were here to demand a refund for something that they never wanted in the first place, but were forced into paying for: Microsoft Windows 98. The event became known as Windows Refund Day. To understand the story behind Windows Refund Day, we have to take a look back at the state of the computer industry during the late 90s. With the ongoing legal case brought on by the US Department of Justice, Microsoft was definitely in the hot seat. It was alleged that Microsoft was participating in anti-competitive business practices and having a monopoly due to their dominance in the computer operating system and web browser space. Windows was, by a landslide, the most used consumer desktop operating system at the time, and still is to this day. However, even in the midst of Microsoft's monopoly, other alternative operating systems attempted to find their place. And no, I'm not talking about Mac OS. I'm talking about Linux, an open source operating system that is completely free to use. While Linux was not nearly as popular as Windows, at least in the consumer desktop operating system space, it did find its niche audience: tech-savvy computer users who wanted an alternative open source choice for a computer operating system. Linux resonated very well with these users who did not want to contribute to Microsoft's monopoly by using Windows 98. Some even went as far to claim that Linux was more secure and easier to use than Windows. But let's say that you were a Linux user in the late 90s and wanted to purchase a brand new PC pre-installed with a distribution of Linux. One thing you would discover almost immediately when shopping around is that the vast majority of computer manufacturers preloaded their machines with Windows 98. And I mean, why wouldn't they? Almost everybody used Windows, so it made sense for PC manufacturers to have deals with Microsoft to cater to these users. Microsoft sold more copies of Windows, the PC manufacturers sold more PCs, and the end user got an OS that was widely used and compatible with more software. It was a win-win. But if you were a Linux user, you didn't want Windows. So what could you do? While you could just wipe the Windows 98 installation off of the hard drive and install Linux, you would actually still be paying for that pre-installed copy of Windows 98, which was accounted for in the total cost of the PC. This frustrated users of Linux and other open source OSs because they were essentially forced to pay for something that they didn't want to use, and that's why they wanted a refund from Microsoft. Alright, let's talk about the refund. Believe it or not, Microsoft actually states in the end user license agreement for Windows that if a user does not accept the agreement, they can return their unused copy of Windows for a full refund. But instead of contacting Microsoft, they had to get in touch with the PC manufacturer. But as it turns out, things just weren't that simple. I mean, why do you think all these people got together to protest Microsoft anyways? This is where things get very interesting. See, if you were to call your PC manufacturer and ask for a refund for your unused Windows license, they would tell you that they can't handle refunds for Windows because they didn't manufacture it, and that you'll need to contact Microsoft for a refund.
In enlightened circles, this is called a catch-22.
So that's why this whole Windows Refund Day event happened in the first place. But it actually wasn't the first time that somebody wanted a refund for an unused Windows license. Enter January of 1997. A Linux user named Donna was out searching for a new laptop. When she realized that every PC she found came bundled with Windows, she asked the store manager of the store she was at if they could instead include a blank hard drive with no operating system on it. The store manager denied her request, saying that the PC manufacturer's contract with Microsoft prevented them from doing so. Frustrated, Donna caved in and purchased a brand new Canon Innova book pre-installed with Windows 95. When she got home and booted up her PC, she was presented with the end user license agreement. Now, she did not accept this agreement, at which point the system prompted her to read the agreement for refund instructions. Of course, the EULA stated that she would need to get in contact with the PC manufacturer to initiate the refund process. She then went online to Canon's website and, to her surprise, did not find any information whatsoever about obtaining a refund. After a few emails back and forth with technical support and over 10 days of Donna not being able to use her PC in fear that it would invalidate the refund, she got to speak with a manager. The manager, who was in the PC business for a long time, had never heard of somebody getting a refund for Windows 95. He also was unaware that his company was supposed to issue it. I guess that Microsoft just never trained their partners on the refund process because they assumed that nobody would ever actually ask for one. Donna eventually got her refund, but it was a very tedious process, having to speak with multiple representatives. Okay, so back to the refund day. Due to the date of the protest being announced weeks in advance, Microsoft and the local news media already knew about it. Microsoft was expecting these people to show up. In fact, they even displayed a sign welcoming the Linux community and had a representative standing outside. By no means did these measures stop the protest, but it did allow Microsoft to handle the local media's portrayal of them in a professional way. The entire event was captured by news crews from local stations, which interviewed both sides of the protest, the open source software users and Microsoft. When asked about the protest, here's what one Microsoft spokesperson had to say.
I think fundamentally what today is about is a PR activity being used by some Linux enthusiasts to generate interest in their product.
Microsoft emphasized once again that it was the responsibility of the computer manufacturers to issue refunds, even issuing an official statement to the protesters saying these same things. But the protesters argued, and when interviewed by the media, explained the catch-22 scenario that brought them here in the first place. Frustrated, a few people from the group actually tried to enter the Microsoft offices on the 9th floor of the building, but their efforts were quickly brought to a halt as they found that the elevator had been reprogrammed to disable access to the 9th floor. Unfortunately, despite many attempts at getting into the offices, the protesters left without their refunds. While it may seem at first like Windows Refund Day was a huge disappointment, getting refunds actually wasn't the ultimate purpose of the protest. I mean, sure, it would have been nice for these Linux users to get issued refunds, but as one protester put it, he never expected Microsoft to do so. He said that the ultimate goal of the protest was to raise awareness to the Catch-22 issue, which it definitely did. Many local news stations in the Silicon Valley area ran segments on the protest, and it was even brought to international audiences through publications including the New York Times and BBC News. Ultimately, Windows Refund Day never got anybody any refunds, but it helped to shed light on Microsoft's business practices at the time and informed people about an alternative choice for a computer operating system that many prefer over Windows today. That's all for today's episode. I'd like to thank all of you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and get subscribed. And as always, I will see you in the next video.